Well, I'm not sure I want to hang out with Vince after that. What are you doing later? No, just kidding. So we're going to have some fun. To give you a little bit of background, I was here about 3 or 4 years ago, and we did a whole branding plan for Visit Topeka. But our whole focus was downtown. And I'm going to explain kind of why that was. And by the way, when Petula Clark did this tune, she recorded it in 1964, and it came out in 1965 and hit #1 in the charts. And how many of you remember that? You just took the bait and dated yourself. But guess what? She is now 84 years old and looks fabulous and is still out there performing.
Wow.
So, you know, when you hear that song in the mid-60s, this looking familiar? You see, when you're downtown, lights are much brighter there, you forget all your troubles. I mean, it goes right down that list. And then you wonder, what the heck happened? Here's what happened. Is we started moving to the European standard, still coming, and when you go across everywhere around in the world, this is in Ponte Vecchio in Italy, you can go downtown Belfast, you can go to all these places, and they're all catering to the millennial generation, and even the younger, the Gen Xers. And so all these places are surrounded by plazas. They're full of people and full of life. And so, and by the way, they're all monetized. But what happened is we got surrounded by, we moved to the suburbs. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. But when you go around the world, you're going to find out some things. Did you know that in Europe, even in South America, and a lot of the places, the average hour they eat dinner is 9:30. In the United States, in the mid-60s, and in the 50s, 60s, the average dinner time was 5:30. You know what it is today in the U.S.? 7:30. So we're gradually moving to what we call the European standard. If you wonder why all the millennials, why you had Bernie Sanders running for president and had the oldest candidate with the youngest voters, is because this generation sees that European standard. And they thought he kind of stood for it. But this is the way these places are. They're organic, they're full of life, they're full of music. And that's just the way they work. This is, and by the way, plazas don't have to be complicated. They're simple spaces. This is Siena, that is famous for the Palio, the famous horse race that runs around it. And it's just where people come to hang out. And by the way, they have 13 villages in Siena, and whichever one wins the Palio, every single day for a year, they come and parade around the square. So there's always life there. There's always activity. It's finally coming to the United States. This is 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica that we helped develop. It used to be people went to the Santa Monica Pier, and 3rd Street was a place you avoided, and now it's one of the best gathering spots in all of Southern California. There's no cars on the street. I'm not suggesting we close off Kansas Avenue for that, but it's full of entertainers. You can see there's entertainers down half a block, and other musicians up here. For the first time, downtowns are back and better than ever. And to illustrate that, suburban malls across the United States are dying. You know that in Topeka. As a matter of fact, the last suburban mall in America was built more than 20 years ago. So what happened? A new thing happened after World War II. People started creating these neighborhoods, and there was one movie, was the first time this was ever introduced. And it was introduced as Bailey Park. You know the movie? It's a Wonderful Life. The building alone created this subdivision. And that was in 1946. And all of a sudden, America started getting introduced to these subdivisions, suburbs. That wasn't even a word before. And so what happened is there was a proliferation around the country of people moving from downtowns out to the suburbs. And so what happened? Where people are, the retailers follow. And then all of a sudden we had the proliferation of of suburban malls all over the country. And then what happened to that is when people living out in the suburbs, shopping out in the suburbs, and then they're commuting into work, then we had to create the bane of America, strip malls, so that on our way to and from, we have these choices. And so what happened is in downtowns, the Woolworths went away, the J.C. Penney's went away, and by the time about 1970 came around, this was what was happening to downtowns all across America. As a matter of fact, this took place in the 70s, the 80s, even into the 90s. And you know what happened? In the year 2010, there were twice as many vacancies in downtowns as in other retail areas. It's that recent. So, with this generational shift of moving to the European standard of closing, even New York City is closing off streets and making it more pedestrian friendly. And having the places where you have the art, the entertainment, and all this work that you've been doing in Topeka, you're seeing this again because now we're to this point. This is the future of Topeka. Is sidewalk cafes, is life after 6 o'clock. It's having the entertainment. It is having all of these things, these celebrations. And so as this all happens, I didn't realize I had all these in there twice. Not sure how that happened. But we've now come full circle. And so here's the scoop. Because most downtowns cannot get their act together, and people want downtowns more than any time since the 60s, is developers are building lifestyle retail centers to mimic the traditional downtown. They're popping up everywhere, and they all are wrapped around urban parks and urban plazas, and they have nightlife and street lighting and sidewalk cafes and places like this. This is in Utah, in Farmington, Utah, a place called Station Park. This is South Lake, Texas, that built an entire city around a lifestyle retail center. I mean, and it's alive all the time. And so this is what's happening even in Lawrence. Wouldn't it be cool if people in Lawrence said, let's head to Topeka tonight rather than the other way around? And so this is what's coming. We've come full circle. We want downtowns more than ever before. So your timing could not be better. And so here are 7 facts. By the way, I came from the travel industry, yet most of our work is in downtown, and you're going to see why when I show you statistics. Number 1, downtowns equal visitors paying. Look at this. The number 1 activity of visitors in the world is that. It's not why we come. We might come here for state government, we might come here for the state museum, we might come here for NODO, but downtown, this is where we spend the money. It's not the reason we come, but it's the number 1 activity once we arrive. And look at this statistic. This is where 80% of all non-lodging travel spending takes place. 80%. That has been the missing ingredient in Topeka. You're a state capital. And that's what's missing. Why do you think Disney put downtown Disney outside each of its parks? To get that 80%. And so the other thing you need to know is that if you want conferences and conventions, which you should get, the people that plan and develop conventions, conferences, trade shows, they do them in places where there's life at the end of the day. That's why we go to San Antonio's Boardwalk or Orlando or Las Vegas or all these other places. We book conventions because at the end of the convention days, there's places for people to go and hang out. And so, number 2, it is the front door to your non-tourism economic development downtown. You know what site selectors do, so forget tourism. Site selectors, I don't care whether they're commercial real estate agents, whether they're looking for factories, you know what they do? They go right into the downtown, and the health of a downtown economically is the health of the community. Downtown is your litmus test. And so, there you go. And this is why tourism in downtowns need to be joined at the hip. And so, number 3 is they're critical to your success. The heart and soul of any community besides its people is its downtown. And the mayor alluded to it. Yes, you're the state's capital, but downtown is Topeka's capital. And so, if you don't hang out in your downtown, neither will visitors. And so, if you can bring downtowns back and bring them to life, and that's what we're going to talk about, then you will win, because they are back and in a big way, everywhere. And here's one of the driving factors. For the first time in U.S. history, there is a generation bigger than the boomers, and it's the millennial generation. They're in their 20s. The youngest ones are still in school. The millennial generation is bigger than the boomers. And guess what? Us boomers got married in our early 20s and had lots of kids young, right? Did you know that the average millennial has their kids in their late 30s and even their early 40s? The millennials are not, when I turned 16, guess what? Oh my gosh, I got up that morning, I went right down and got my driver's license. Did you know that 30% of millennials don't even have driver's licenses? Even the ones that can drive. I mean, that's not important. They want pedestrian, they want gathering places, and they want nightlife. We are at the age of third places. The first place is the place we live, it's our home. The second place is where we work. And the third place is the place we go to hang out. And so Starbucks built an entire brand around creating third places. And so the future of downtowns is where we go after work and on weekends. So here's the other one. Your plaza, your downtown might start at 11 in the morning, and it's not done till 10 o'clock at night. And you've got to start working with your retailers so they get it. And I'm going to give you a couple statistics about that. The future downtowns is where we go after working on weekends. Think about that. So when we get, I've been here and see when the state employees, I mean, you see the rush hour into town in the morning and the rush hour out of town. Wouldn't it be cool to say, listen, you know, rather than head home, let's just go hang out downtown. And there better be something more. You know, this is the future. We'd love to see tons of sidewalk cafes and street performers and all of those things. And so, in economic development, tourism, and community development, there's absolutely positively, I stole those from FedEx, nothing that's more important than your downtown. Nothing. But here's the scoop. At the end of the day, it's what's in your buildings that's just as important as all the work that you've done as a city and as the foundation. It's what's in those buildings. So many cities spend millions and millions of dollars developing these gorgeous downtowns, but they forget the next part, which is how do you bring it to life? And that's where you're at. And that's so thumbs up for Topeka. And there's one thing I wanted to tell you about, 3 key statistics, and I said that I was going to give anybody in business downtown 3 key things they need to know, and I call it the 7-8-7 rule. And here's the first one, and remember this one. 70% of all bricks and mortar retail spending takes place after 6 p.m. Are you open? 70%. Why do you think Walmart's open 24 hours? Why do you think that most of your grocery stores are open late at night? Why do you think they do that? By the way, that came from the National Retail Federation. They represent the big boxes. 70%. So, are you open? And by the way, can you read that in the back? I want to, just so that everybody knows. Right there. So having merchants downtown that all close at 6 isn't going to do you any good. Okay? Here's number 2. So that was the first 7. Here's the second one. Women account for 80% of all consumer spending. Woo! Woo! The guys are all going, tell me something I didn't know. But I was waiting for the guy that says, usually there's somebody in the audience that says, that's all. But that is an absolute fact. Look at that picture. That was not staged. How many of you guys are going, been there, done that? We would love to see 150 benches lining up and down Kansas Street. By the way, benches should always be at the facade facing out and flanked with pots and planters. It's the front porch swing. You know what I mean? We put the front porch swing or the rocking chair out there. We may never sit out there, but you know what it says to your home? Welcome. It's the same thing in downtown. So I have 2 words for you. There you go. Think benches. You know, I love this little business here. This is in Wickford, Rhode Island. They get it. They put a little sign right here next to the door. You know what it says? Your husband called. He said to buy anything you want. And here's the third one. I don't know why I put this as fact number 1. It's fact number 3. Curb appeal can count for 70% of first-time sales at all those places. Think about this. We all travel. I'll bet you everybody in this room has said these exact words. That looks like a nice place to eat, right? Curb appeal. And that is the responsibility of the merchants. And the mayor was so right. We're in the age of public-private partnerships. And so that's something you do, but that's your three things. And so for your retailers, you need to, I would say retailers should be allowed 24 inches out in front of their stores to extend window displays to exterior spaces. Things like this. Every morning this lady gets up and sets those things out there. Number 1, it slows traffic. Number 2, it says, hey, there's a business there. And number 3, it gets their attention. By the way, these are window displays to exterior spaces. Can you imagine doing that? I took this in January near Sacramento, California. Those are all silk. She has an air curtain that runs down. She goes, and I said, well, having that air curtain, why do you have the door open? She goes, when my door's open, my business almost doubles. Because people know I'm in there and I'm in business. So when it comes to your streetscapes, what are you doing to make that look fresh? So what you need to do is the foundation has done their part. They have made, Kansas Street is beautiful. When I was here 3 years ago, you were just starting to rip it up. So today I drove up and down it 2 or 3 times because I was so stunningly what you've done. So now the merchants need to do the facades, and then we're going to get to the key thing that's going to come up. But we need to see your merchants start doing this, particularly those who are retail. But by the way, if you have a law firm, a bank, you can still do beautification. Because it says we're open. Do your restaurants doing this? I mean, I took this down in Nashville in November. It's all silk. And what I mean is not to do that. You wouldn't put a clothes rack in your window, so you don't put it outside. So there are those 3 rules. Now, for downtown Topeka, what you have done is amazing. This is it 3 years ago. I think that's when I was here. Was that about right, Vince? Yeah. So this was it then. You know, I remember driving down. I remember coming down the sidewalks, and this is what we saw. And we saw places where there used to be trees. And I mean, heck, what a difference you've made. I mean, this is awesome. I love all the celebrations, all the art. I mean, what you're doing downtown is fantastic. I really look at what you've done is developing Topeka's Carnegie Hall. You know what I mean? You just made it stunningly beautiful. You created great light. I love seeing people be able to go out and just want to hang out on the sidewalks. And so what you've done is just incredible. Creating those photo opportunities and everything you're doing, it is really, really amazing. And yes, they did send me these pictures, and yes, I did see the mayor and Vince at every one of these. And the mayor, by the way, I just want to make it perfectly clear that he wasn't with Vince when the lap dancing things came around. You know, make that point of clarification. And so, but what you've done, I mean, it is phenomenal. And I even love the fact that Vince is here dedicating a statue that looks exactly like him. So, here's what comes next. To make downtown work, you have to get people downtown on a consistent basis. Now, how do you do that? You create plazas. When I say consistent basis, I'm saying 250 days a year minimum. The foundation in downtown Topeka and Visit Topeka, you do an amazing job. You have like 30 events downtown, right? So here's the point, and they're fantastic, and I'm not dissing these events at all. Let's say you created 50 events downtown. It takes all year to do 30, to coordinate all of those there. If you did 60 events downtown and every one of them happened for 2 days, that's 120 days. That is not enough to sustain a retail business. The minimum is 250 days. They don't have to be events, it has to be activity. So how do you do that? You need 250 days of activity a year. And even then, the businesses have another 115 days they got to fend for themselves. And so you create plazas. And this is new in the United States. I go around and teach architecture and land planners and everything, the difference between plazas and urban parks. Plazas, you saw all those pictures of plazas, they're pretty much open spaces that are programmed more than they are beautiful places. This is in downtown Rapid City, South Dakota, population about 85,000, okay? And by the way, I said, I want you to take that 60-space parking lot and turn it into a plaza. I don't even care if you make up the parking. And of course, the merchants scream bloody murder that we're going to take away their parking. And you know what? If you want to go to Main Street Square there, you might have to park 2 or 3 blocks away, and there's never been a complaint. You know why? Because it's worth it. So if you take somebody's parking away and they say, if you take away the parking, you're going to kill my business. Here's your answer. Are you telling me your business isn't worth walking 2 blocks for? Shuts them right up. So that's what we did. And by the way, what they designed is not what you should design. As a matter of fact, they've spent millions of dollars to try to correct what they did. But this is that parking lot. As a matter of fact, I told them to tear down that building on the left that you see here. That is a vacant Sears building that had pigeons living in it. And so, but I said, tear it down, build a bigger plaza. Instead, I got a call from a guy named Ray Hillebrand. He goes, Roger, my name's Ray Hillebrand. I own some property downtown, and I just want to let you know we're not tearing down that Sears building because I just bought it. But I also gave the city $1 million to build a new plaza right next to my building. And then he gave him another $1 million. And by the way, see, I'm already greasing the skids for the fundraiser. And by the way, he commands more per square foot in his building than the rest of downtown. And so that's what it looks like in the summer. By the way, they wish this splash pad was this whole thing. And they're working on redoing a lot of it. But you know, that splash pad runs 120 days a year. Can you imagine if this, by the way, is about 8,000 square feet. Can you imagine if they had an 8,000 square foot splash pad there? You'd have 120 days of families and kids in downtown Topeka after school, on weekends, playing in that splash pad. And by the way, those are all flush mounted, so you can shut those all off and fill that full of tables and chairs and have bands and concerts on the stage. But during the winter, that is bigger than Rockefeller Center. As a matter of fact, that's another 120 days a year. You know what? We just mentioned 240 days a year activity. If you could get, look, if you, let's say you have 125,000 people roughly in Topeka, and I didn't even count your surrounding communities. If we could get 300 people downtown, which means if 25,000 people in Topeka never came downtown, and everybody else came down just 3 nights of the year, you'd have 300 or 400 people a night in downtown Topeka, and that is enough to sustain restaurants, retail shops, activities, sidewalk cafes, you name it. That's all it takes. By the way, they make $130,000 a year just renting ice skates and have to dole them out because it gets too packed. This is what you call bringing downtown to life. And every night from 9:30 to 10, the water feature goes and there's music and LED lights and everything. And people gather on there. They're shooting music videos. I urge you sometimes just to go to Google and type in Main Street Square, Rapid City. They're one of the first cities that actually did a plaza that was programmed. Many cities build plazas and they're dead space. Programming is the key. And so I love what somebody said. By the way, they do movies on the square every Monday night. Average attendance, 3,500. You know what? When you buy a house in South Dakota, they can demographically keep track of the age of the people buying a home. Within 24 months of this plaza, the average age of a person buying a home in Rapid City dropped 12 years. The youth were coming back. I love what somebody said here. I grew up in Rapid City. It was never as cool as it is now. That's exactly what we want them to say about Topeka 36 months from now when this plaza's open. Now, in Rapid City, people said, oh, you build the plaza, you're going to drain business away from it. You took away 60. They complained. I went back there 2 years after it opened, and I said, make me a list of the 25 businesses who gave you the most grief. And then I went and secret shopped every one of them. Out of the 25, 14 of them I got to actually talk to the owner. And I would go in and I would go, you know that plaza over there? Does that really help your business? And you know what? Every single one of them said it was the best thing Rapid City has ever done. There are no retail vacancies in their downtown. Before, there was about 20%. And by the way, there's a lower turnover. They have less than 2% turnover. And we're talking 3 blocks out from the plaza, not right next to it. 3 blocks, any direction. And businesses are now open later in the evening because that's the customers are there. Now there's incentive for them to stay open. Many businesses continue to break sales records. The average population is dropping, and it's a great place for conference, conventions, and trade shows. I mean, and here's the big statistic. It hosts as many people as Mount Rushmore. A plaza in Rapid City. A true plaza is the central gathering place with lots of seating areas, year-round activity center. It includes interactive water features. I mean, it's programmed with events, activities, 250 or more. Rapid Cities up to 300 days a year. It includes a stage, audience areas. It incorporates retail food year-round. Here's the other deal: plazas must be monetized. You saw those ones in Italy. We need to have restaurants. We need to have food trucks. We need it to be monetized. Shops on and around the plaza. And so when you do these, you know, they're an investment. I mean, the mayor talked about the value of property taxes. That's tax base. You know, as a mayor, your job for your elected officials is to improve the quality of life. And you do that by increasing the tax base. This does both. And so it's absolutely worth doing. We researched more than 100 of them in the United States. And every single one of them was thrilled. So we did this. This is not necessarily what your plaza is going to look like. This was just a concept we did a couple years ago. You know, we actually closed off half a block at 7th here. I know that would be controversial. We're trying to give as much room as we could. But can you imagine if you had a splash pad like that you could shut off, and then you could fill us full of tables and chairs and do the Taste of Topeka or the Taste of Kansas. I'd like to see, you know, when you did your branding, we wanted you to be the festival city for this entire state. This is how it starts. So when you do things like this, however it ends up looking, that it is full of life, full of activity, that it will win. So can you imagine if every morning in downtown Topeka there were yoga classes on the square as people went to work in state offices or wherever they're working downtown? Wouldn't it be cool if you held the Taste of Kansas festivals, or even the Taste of Topeka festivals, food, all those things, and then have that ice, you know, and then have those splash pads like this. This is in Fort Worth, Texas. You know, I mean, and when you go down to plazas, and I'll never forget when I went back to Kansas, or went back to Rapid City, and it was under construction. They had a big drawing of the plaza. And there were these moms with their strollers and their little kids, and they were looking at the pictures of what it was going to look like. And then when I went back and I saw little kids jumping and running through the spray fountain and everything, I sat there and cried like a baby. I'm a wimp. Because it changes people's lives. Those little kids will never forget the time they spent on Main Street Square. For you, it ought to be Celebration Plaza. We want you to be the festival city. You know, can you imagine places with public markets, farmers markets, arts markets? You know, just life. 250 days, food truck festivals, you name it. You know, concerts on the stage. So this is not event space. It's activity space. And, you know, then do those movies on the square. And so, you know, I don't know, you know, by the way, the Topeka Celebration Square is what I've been calling it, but I just want to let you know that the naming rights are available. And so, you know what's best about this? Here's the difference between plazas and other great attractions, whether they're museums, whether they're performing arts centers. You know what's the best thing about plaza? It's always free. There is no barrier to your economic status, your race, your gender, none. It is free to all the time. Yeah, you might pay, you might buy a beer in a beer garden, you might rent a pair of ice skates, but it's free. It's for everybody. It's not for a certain class or certain people. This is the space for all people that live in Topeka to come and spend time and really build some of the best memories they will take with them through their lives. It's taking all this hard work, that $3.8 million that you raised, all the years of pain and everything that you went through to do that. Now it's time to bring it to life. And that is what this will do, so that these become the Kodak moments that people in Topeka will always cherish. And you are the champions that are going to make this happen. So thank you so much for letting us be a little part of your journey in making Topeka the showcase for this entire state and beyond. Thank you so much. Thank you.